Be Frankie.
Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix. Yeah, I'm striving for greatness, trying to make it out. We're stuck in the matrix.
Yo, what's good? It's your boy Bdell. If you're new to this channel, hit the like button, hit the share button, hit the subscribe button, hit that notification bell. But today I'm going to be decoding the occultic symbolism of King Charles's portrait and how it propagates the foul, transgressive dark art that's based on Babylonian blood magic. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, you already know what time it is. Get those notes out. I'm finna go over a lot of information that's acclimated to Canaanite culture, Babylonian culture, and how it syncs up with the royal family, right? So first, we're going to start out with this portrait that was created by Jonathan Geo, right, who was also an occultist. So when you look at the vivid red work measuring about 8 feet, 6 inches by 6 foot, 6 inches, which is basically the epitome of 666, the sigil schism of the Baphomet is also acclimated to the picture here on the left, right? Because when you understand the Freemasonic occultic principles, they all have a veneration for Baphomet, because Baphomet is acclimated to the 5 P's of ancient occultism, which is politics, paganism, polytheism, philosophy, and psychology. Those are the 5 P's of ancient occultism, right? So when we look at this picture, this portrait of King Charles, I'm going to show you a video of it first. Now, when you look closely right here, like I said, the great majority of these things and the sigil schism within the infrastructure of the painting is based on a form of Babylonian blood magic, Babylonian occultic magic that has a form of sigil schism. And we're going to get into the symbolism within the infrastructure of the portrait as we get through the presentation. So get your notes out, hit that like and hit that subscribe button, get this video out there, because everything that's taking place right now, as far as like the symbolism, it correlates to everything on a prophetic scale. And we're going to get into that once we break down the theological concepts of monotheistic religion for those who are stuck in religion. So I'm going to play this video. The picture that you're looking at is what you call defiled dark art, which is based upon transgressive art. We're going to get into that as we get through the presentation. So I had to show you that in order for you to get an intuitive understanding about what's going on. Now, the guy who created the painting, we're going to get into that later. His name is Jonathan Geo. So also, we're going to get into the esoteric symbolism of Baphomet and how it's acclimated to the Knights of Templars and all the Freemasonic rites. Because when you look at the infrastructure of the painting, you can also see the Baphomet when you get a double picture and you flip it upside down. When you get a dualistic picture, you flip it upside down. In the middle, you got the sigil schism of the Baphomet right here, right there in the middle, right? Which is not a coincidence, because I told you the year of 2024 is the fall of the Red Dragon in the last video. So all these videos that I'm making, it is a big ass puzzle piece to what's going on. You got to understand that it's not a coincidence that everything is lining up with certain color spectrums. Everything is lining up with certain numerical synchronizations. Everything is not lining up in a form of prophecy. So that's why I say you got to get these videos out here, because a lot of this information, a lot of people are not digging deep enough to get the esoteric aspects of the information, because the esoteric knowledge within this information is one of those things where it can give you the edification in the future to understand what's going on and what's going to be taking place when you're talking about psychological operations and things of that nature. So that basically coincides to the picture of this. So you got this white horse, this symbology of it with the blood at the bottom, which is also in correlation to the blood and the transgressive art of King Charles's portrait. We finna get into that, right? Because there's a signification that plays a part of this. Now, when you go to this publication, it says in the Bible, the pale horse is a symbol of death, and the blood of the pale horse represents hell on earth, right? So that means that, like I said, the dimensions are colliding, but the people or the archonic forces who control the demiurge, which is basically your personification of hell, they control the demiurge. And they're trying to hold on to the infrastructure of the energy extraction matrix while the old world basically phases out that was under the Piscean age of darkness. So the Piscean age of darkness is the perpetual state of hell, which is also known as the demiurge. So like I said, the pale horse is a symbol of death, and the blood of the pale horse represents hell on earth. The pale horse is one of the four horsemen of the apocalypse, which also includes a white horse, a red horse, and a black horse. The white horse represents conquest, the red horse represents war, and the black horse represents pestilence and or famine. So now, as I was telling you before, when you break down the ancient symbolism of the four horsemen of the apocalypse, they're acclimated to the four basic elements, which is earth, air, water, and fire, right? But the intrinsic element that basically amplifies those four basic elements is ether. So ether is basically destroying the simulation, which is the demiurge that's connected to the representation of hell on earth, right? So it has to be desolation on the planet, the abomination of desolation, which is your great purification. The planet has to go through a chaotic standpoint in order to get the order, right? So that's where the intrinsic ether is coming in. There's a new sun ever since the solar eclipse, the anomaly of the solar eclipse that took place, which was basically the black sun giving off another intrinsic radiation to the new sun. This new sun is putting out cosmic radiation. That's the ether that basically creates hell on earth. It's not hell for the chosen ones, but it's hell for the people who created this simulation. It's hell for the people who control the simulation. It's hell for the people who propagate imperialism under a totalitarian order. It's hell for them because their time is up, right? So we finna get into that in another video. So one thing you gotta understand, as I was talking about the horses, right? Because everything is really symbolic. Everything has an esoteric aspect. So I'm gonna show you this video of the horses. As you can see the black horse, which represents pestilence and famine, right? And like I said, we're on the brink of another lockdown. We're on the brink of another lockdown. By the year of 2025, they already have it, basically premeditated that the planet is going to be locked down again, just like in the beginning points of 2020. So the same thing is going to translate. It's going to be a second wave of whatever is basically to come, since you have these new energies here on the planet. This is all symbolism that's connected to the portrait. It's all Babylonian blood magic, right?
Isso tava. Olha aí, eu não vou nem mostrar, né? Olha aqui o cavalo que fez. Meu Deus do céu, gente. Olha, 3 varas para o mundo. Coitado do bichinho, coitado do ser humano, coitado do cara que estragou.
So as you can see, not a coincidence that all these things is basically in conjunction. Not a coincidence. Because now we finna get into all the esoteric symbolism within the portrait. So now when you look at the portrait, you can see on the left right here on this on the screen, it might be showing you to your right, but you can see a butterfly on his shoulder. Right here on his shoulder. A butterfly represents mind control, mind manipulation, psychological operation, right? Which is based on Project Monarch, right? That is acclimated to the infrastructure of the CIA. So Project Monarch, the alleged offshoot of MK Ultra, which is based on mind control, is designed to create legions of so-called mind control slaves for the rich and the powerful. According to conspiracy theorists, the project was called Project Monarch after the butterfly of the same name. The training begins in childhood, sort of like the great majority of your celebrities when they go into these industries of Nickelodeon and Disney and they get these contracts or whatever. That is basically your personification of Project Monarch in a form of mind control, because they have to control the minds of the people within the infrastructure of that industry to put out a certain message that's being facilitated by those who control them in the upper hierarchy rankings of the plutocracy. So the training begins in early childhood when he says children who are traumatized have their legs tied and electrical shock tortured. So it's based on, like, Project Monarch is based on satanic ritualistic abuse. Satanic ritualistic abuse, which is a form of Babylonian magic, Babylonian incantations. So the claims of mind control Monarch programming are the latest details to be grafted onto the tales of satanic ritualistic abuse that began on the surface in the 1980s, because all this is basically a derivative of ancient Babylon, which is Canaanite culture, right? So many groups of several affiliated with them with the Protestant church believe in a large conspiracy of Satanists that spans the globe, which controls the drug and the many different industries and the government, so-called Illuminati, and they believe that these people engage in a large scale of human trafficking and abuse. So all this stuff, you know what I'm saying, it works in tandem. Everything is connected, as I was telling you before, because when you understand Babylonian blood magic, Babylonian, all these rituals and these incantations and occult symbolism, it came from ancient Babylon. We finna get into that because we're going to break it down how it correlates up to Dracula and things of that nature when you're talking about the ancient Egyptians when they got infiltrated in the 18th dynasty. Ancient Egypt was introduced to satanic worship in the 18th dynasty, right? That's when the Ptolemies that came in with the Hyksos, right? So when you understand the chain of command of hierarchy of spirituality, first you got Kemetic spirituality, then you got Buddhism, then you got Taoism. Then outside of those three spiritual belief systems, you have satanic worship, right? So you got Satanism, then you got ancient Babylon. Then after that, you got Catholicism. Then after Catholicism, you got Christianity. After Christianity, you got the Protestant church, which is acclimated to a form of satanic worship. Then after that, you got Islam. So that is basically the esoteric hierarchical and the chain of command and ranking when you're talking about spirituality. The inception of true spirituality comes from ancient Kemet, which is also known as Egypt. But Egypt is a Greek term because they was infiltrated by the Ptolemies in the 18th dynasty, where you had the Eucharist ceremony and then you had the forgot the other one, the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD, right? So now you got this entity called Vigo in the Ghostbuster movie that basically emulates the King Charles portrait, right? And I did some research on this individual, Vigo. And Vigo was born in 1505 AD in the Balkan Kingdom of Carpathia near Hungary. So when you understand the geographical area of this individual, is actually acclimated to Vladimir the Impaler, right? So you got to watch this movie Ghostbusters, the first one, and you will see this entity, and you can see how he is with trafficking little people and things of that nature. I'm not finna get into that because we all know that we got to speak in code on this platform. Now, one thing that I found interesting about, this individual, he basically has the same correlations to Vladimir the Impaler, who was also King Charles's genealogical connection to him. King Charles is related to Vlad Tepes, who was also known as Vlad the Impaler, who was also known as Count Dracula or Count Dracula, right? And I'm going to show you a video of that. So this Count Dracula, when you see at the top right here, King Charles's ancestor, they basically have the same stories. When you watch this movie, Prince Vigo is basically the same entity as Vladimir the Impaler, who is King Charles's ancestor. So I'm going to play this video, and he's going to tell you verbatim, out his own mouth, that is his ancestor.
It's Charles, who can trace his ancestry back to Romania's dark and distant past.
The genealogy shows that I'm descended from Vlad the Impaler. So I do have a bit of a stake in the country.
As it were.
I'm going to play it one more time, in case you didn't hear it.
It's Charles, who can trace his ancestry back to Romania's dark and distant past.
The genealogy shows that I'm descended from Vlad the Impaler. So I do have a bit of a stake in the country.
As it were.
Vlad the Impaler. Vlad the Impaler. I have a stake in the country. He's trying to drop a punchline right there. He said, because Vlad the Impaler, he used to put people on stakes after he killed his victims. He put them on stakes in front of the geographical area wherever he was residing at. He'd stake them and he'd put them on a stick and he'd let them sit inside, like outside of the castle, basically. And it shows you that in this movie called Bram Stoker's Count Dracula. And I'm going to be talking about that within the presentation. So, since I showed you that, there's another video that's in correlation to what he basically said. Because one thing you got to understand, as we was talking about Project Monarch, everything within the infrastructure of the plutocracy and the elites and the people who control the industries and the people who control the simulation, they're basically a form of a monarchy. So this is why they propagate Project Monarchy, to control the minds of people in order to control the planet. So that's why, King Charles is related to Vlad the Impaler. I'm going to play this video to support those claims within this video.
Game of Thrones-like system of European monarchy throughout the centuries has meant that there are some surprising genealogical connections to be found. One such relationship is that of the British royal family and the bloodthirsty voivode of Wallachia, Vlad Tepes, otherwise known as Vlad the Impaler. The man who was a member of the real House of the Dragon, as Dracula, the son of Vlad Dracul, used extreme methods to maintain and regain power and influence in the effective vassal state of Wallachia, which is now part of Romania. During his turbulent career, he pledged allegiance to the Hungarian throne of Matthias Corvinus, son of John Hunyadi, as a brutal buffer state between the Ottoman Empire and Christendom. Corvinus ultimately betrayed Vlad and had him imprisoned in Hungary.
Hold on, wait.
Local legend.
Just got to download. Now, look at this. He's holding in his hand, right? That is the same cross. That is the Knights of Templar cross, which is also known as the Order of the Dragon cross. This has a veneration and a worship of Baphomet, right? We finna make these connections tonight. And then also, when you look at it right here, when he's holding in his hand, that looks just like, I got to pull it up now. You know what I'm saying? I just got that download. That looks just like the Douce bottle that Jay-Z got, right? We finna make all these esoteric connections today. We finna make all these esoteric connections today. Let's see the Douce bottle. Because the Douce bottle is basically the epitome of the Order of the Red Dragon cross. Because when you understand ancient occultism and you understand their sigils and their symbols, they have a multitude of meanings. They don't have just a one-dimensional meaning. Douce Jay-Z. We finna make these connections tonight. You know what I'm saying? We gotta make everything make sense, because it's not a coincidence why they say that Jay-Z is next as far as getting exposed in the music industry, just like P. Diddy. Like I said, we in the fall of the Red Dragon. Anything that's connected to the draconic energy, the people who control the simulation, right? Now, boom, we got, you know what I'm saying, we on point. Now, when you look at this, when you look at the symbolism, look at what he's have. Hold on for a second. Now, look at the symbolism. You see on the right here where my cursor is right here. You see the bottle right here with the double crucifix, Knights of Templar, Order of the Dragon symbol, right? Now look at the Douce bottle. Same thing. That's crazy. Like I said, you cannot make this up. So what are they really putting inside of this Douce that Jay-Z propagates in the liquor industry? What are they really putting in there? Are they putting some type of transgressive fluids within, when you're talking about biological fluids of, so-called, adrenochrome purposes? You never know what they putting inside these bottles. So that's something to think about, you know what I'm saying? Because we all know, 2024 is the fall of the Red Dragon. The Red Dragon controls the whole infrastructure of every industry, music industry, politics. So it's not a coincidence that all this stuff is subjected to Babylonian blood magic. So you got the Knights of Templar clause, which is also known as the Order of the Red Dragon, that has the worship and the veneration of Baphomet. Crazy.
Suggesting he was once held in caves beneath Buda before being transported to Visegrad. Vlad attained his fearsome sobriquet due to his treatment of Ottoman prisoners, political opponents, and those who transgressed his strict moral code, who would routinely be impaled on wooden spikes. He had thousands of people impaled and was responsible for many other gruesomely inventive ways of dispatching his enemies. But despite his reputation, Vlad was seen as a hero of Christianity in keeping the Ottomans at bay.
See, remember he said he's a hero of Christianity. So that's why I told you, anytime your ass worship and believe monotheistic religion and you're connected to that energy, you're basically connected to a form of satanic worship. I told you, the foundation of spirituality is Kemetic spirituality, Buddhism, Taoism. Then outside of those three spiritual systems, you got Satanism. Then you got Babylonianism. Then after that, you got Catholicism. You got Christianity. Then you got the Protestant church. Then you got Islam. So why is, if Vladimir the Impaler, we all know, right? We all know that he was basically the form of Count Dracula. So if the bloodline of King Charles is acclimated to the genealogical records of Vlad the Impaler, who was also known as Count Dracula, what does that say about Christianity, right? Anybody that's connected and you worship Christianity, you're basically a Satanist. You connected to Islam, you're basically a Satanist. You connected to Catholicism, you're basically a Satanist. The Protestant church, Coptic religions, you're basically a Satanist, right? Because the inception of satanic worship is connected to the demiurge of the archonic forces, who are draconian reptilians, where you get your inception point of where Dracos come from. Draco, draconian star constellation, Count Dracula, right? All this stuff is connected. So that's where you get the adrenochrome and all this stuff. All this stuff works in conjunction, right?
Highly regarded in some quarters in Romania today. His legend continued, and he was plucked from history's dark recesses by Bram Stoker as the inspiration for the blood-sucking vampire count in his 1897 Gothic horror novel Dracula. So how is the medieval butcher and muse of Stoker related to the newly elevated King Charles III? Well, Vlad Tepes is technically Charles's great-grandfather, 16 times removed, through Queen Mary of Teck, consort of George V. The new king has close ties to Romania in the recent past too. In 2015, he set up the Prince's Trust Romania, dedicated to the preservation of heritage. On a visit to Romania when he was still the Prince of Wales, Charles even joked about the connection to Vlad, saying, "You could say I have a stake in this country." That's it for this video. Don't forget to like, share, and most importantly, subscribe. And you can also support the channel on Subscribestar, link in the description. Thanks for watching.
And there's also a video that I had. They said that King Charles at the Bohemian Grove, I don't know if it was King Charles or if it was a Rothschild. They said that he shapeshifted in the bedroom when he was in there with another person. They were sharing basically bedrooms at Bohemian Grove, and one of them shapeshifted into a Draconian. I gotta find that video because that's a whole video in itself. Because like I said, anytime that you worship anything outside of yourself within the infrastructure of the simulation, right? Anything that's quarantined inside the fermented dome that we living in, this is the demiurge. Anything within this demiurge, as far as your belief system, is basically satanic worship. Point blank, period. I don't care what nobody say. There's another video. Talking about King Charles. Yeah, his connection to Vladimir the Impaler. We're also going to get into the sigil schism of the crown on his head. We're finna get into that. It's all connected to the Order of the Dragon. And I believe P. Diddy, he has a this sigil on one of his necklaces that he has. I can't find the picture, but if you know, if somebody knows the picture, you can send it to me or whatever. But once I find it, I'll probably present it in another presentation due to the fact that he just got exposed 2 days ago. Also within the video, we're going to be talking about this movie called Dracula Untold. So Dracula Untold is in connection and conjunction to everything that I'm telling you right now, as far as like the monarchy system, and there's a bloodline that controls governments and stuff like that. But we finna break it down today. Hit that subscribe button. So Dracula, Draconian star constellation, Archons, Draconian reptilian, Dracula, all those are basically correlations. Now we're gonna finna get into, like I said, he's blood related to the genealogical connection of Vladimir the Impaler. King Charles is. King Charles is what we're talking about in this video. For those coming in, we're talking about King Charles in the portrait, right? Because everything is based on Babylonian blood magic. So Vladimir the Impaler from Romania, and he was with the Transylvanian Saxons, right? We all know what a Saxon is, right? Do the research on that. Do the research. So just like I was telling you, the guy in the Ghostbusters movies, he came from the same geographical area. Vlad went to Moldavia and later went to Hungary. Just like the guy right here, Sorrow of Moldavia, and he also went to Hungary. And his name is Vigo in the movie Ghostbusters, right? See the connection, right? Because it basically works in conjunction with King Charles's portrait right here. So what are they basically trying to say? That's why you got to watch all these old movies, because these old movies is going to give you the edification that you need to understand the puzzle pieces. Because what they doing is they playing fifth dimensional chess by way of symbolism. So if you understand the symbolism, you can't get caught up into the tricknology. So he was the ruler of Wallachia in 1436, and he held the hostages of the Ottoman Empire, right, where you had the Turkish Moors at. So you got Vladimir the Impaler connected to King Charles's bloodline. He even has a statue in Romania. So you got the King of Hungary, Holy Roman Empire. And those are, the Holy Roman Emperor. So all this stuff is basically connected to the founder of the Order of the Red Dragon. So you got the Holy Roman Empire. Holy Roman Empire is connected to a form of Catholicism. I told you this is all based on satanic worship. Once you do the intuitive research, you got to do your own independent research in order to find the proliferating contradictions within Christianity and Catholicism and any form of religion. So you're looking at the Order of the Red Dragon sigil system. As I was telling you before, Count Dracula, right? King Charles. This is the fall of the Red Dragon, 2024, right? It's all based on a monarchy system. So the Order of the Red Dragon, right, which is comprised of the Kingdom of Hungary, Kingdom of Croatia, the Holy Roman Empire, Wallachia. Then you got the Crown of Aragon. So all this stuff is acclimated to. You got the Order of Chivalry. The order flourished during the first half of the 15th century, primarily in Germany and Italy during the 1400s. So I need you to look at something right here. Analyze this sigil on the top of his head right here, right? Because the sigil is basically the epitome of the sigil system of the Order of the Red Dragon symbol, which is a form of a crucifix. I told you, anything that's connected to westernized spiritual systems, satanic worship. Because now when you look at the emblems on King Charles's garments, you can see the same sigils and crucifixes right here where I got my cursor at. That is the Order of the Red Dragon symbol, right? Or the Order of the Red Dragon. You can see it right here at the bottom. Order of the Red Dragon. All crucifixes is based upon the Order of the Dragon of Dracula. Same sigil as the same sigil as the Douce bottle, which is connected to the Cross of Lorraine Knights of Templar. All the crucifix is connected to the Knights of Templar. The Knights of Templars, they worship Baphomet, which is why you see Baphomet within the picture of King Charles. You can see the Baphomet here in the middle, right? Not a coincidence. Because the Order of the Red Dragon sigil system is acclimated to the Knights of Templar cross. The Knights of Templar cross is connected to Baphomet because the Knights of Templar, they got their worship of Baphomet by the Mohammedans, which is a form of Islam, because Baphomet comes from Baphomet. That's where the inception point of the etymology comes from. So you got the Knights of Templar cross, and they worship Baphomet. So you got the dark priesthood of the Baphomet, the dark god. So you got in 1307, Philip V of France was deeply in debt to the poor fellow soldiers of Christ in the Temple of Solomon, a military order commonly known as the Knights of Templars. The Knights of Templars had originated during the First Crusade of the monastic order dedicated. Then you got Baphomet Knights of Templars, source of absurd Victorian charlatan. So now we're going to get to this, back to this picture here. When you look at the top level, you see a gargoyle. A gargoyle is basically the one and the same as Archon. An Archon is basically a draconian reptilian. So you got the Baphomet from the Cathedral of Notre Dame built in the Knights of Templar. So that's where the inception of it really came from. Then you get to the westernized aspect of it that come from Eliphas Levi of the Satanic Church. Because when you're looking at Baphomet, you're really looking at a draconian entity because it comes from the sigil system right here of the Pazuzu 700 BC, known as the arm and the jester, the arm jester, as above, so below. So this based upon the energy of the sabbatical goat pentagram, the Templar pentagram of graffiti, the same sigils, right? So this is how you understand a language. You understand the etymology, you understand the inception point of the symbols and the sigils. That's how you get to the truth. You don't get to the truth by following these motherfuckers and just doing what they do and just believing in people because they got on business suits. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't come from that. You got to do your own edification. Now, Baphomet is a deity which Knights of Templars were accused of worshiping that subsequently became incorporated into various occult and Western esoteric traditions. The name Baphomet appeared in trial transcripts for the Inquisition of the Knights of Templar in 1307. So the Knights of Templar is a Christian organization. What the fuck you having a veneration and a credence for Baphomet if you know it comes from the archonic forces? That's as I told you. Like I said, all monotheistic religion is satanic worship, point blank period. I don't care what nobody say. You a Christian, you worship Satan. You in Islam, you worship Satan. You in Catholicism, you worship Satan. And the reason I say that is because they all have a credence to the cube of Saturn. The cube of Saturn is what breaks down the photon light spectrum to where you get physical matter, to where you worship things outside of yourself, because now you're in third density. You're in the form of trapped light. You dark matter now. You're in a form of carbon. You trapped inside of a firmament to where you have a physical infrastructure. So your physical flesh is a part of the demiurge, right? Because now you worshiping things outside of yourself because you're not the epitome of human consciousness, which is the light orb energy, which is your etheric self. Your etheric self is your higher self. Your higher self is your Zohar body. So now we get into the military orders of the crucifix and the sigils, right? All this is connected to the Order of the Crusades, the Order of the Red Star, the Order of the Dragon, the militia of Jesus Christ. And then you got all this stuff is connected. This is all satanic worship, which comes from Babylon, right? So it's not a coincidence that, this is one thing, the hypocrisy is crazy to me. One thing, you got some people who are truth tellers within, the spiritual community, within the conspiracy community. one thing I see about people, they get on the social media, they expose the political system, they expose all these leaders, they expose the so-called Illuminati, and then within that same sentence, they're gonna be like, well, we gotta, worship Jesus and worship God. The same motherfuckers that you speaking against created that whole infrastructure that's being controlled by archonic forces. So, like I said, I think a lot of people, their perception and understanding about where one thing people just don't do, they just don't do the research. They don't go all the way back. They don't understand the inception of where this stuff really came from. Because mentally, they cannot subconsciously detach from the religious system because they feel like they got to believe something in order to feel real within this false reality that we're living in, right? So they got to worship something. That's part of their psychological indoctrination because they're here on karmic purposes, right? So you hear a lot of people, like I said, you hear people be like, well, we got to expose the government. We got to expose these political leaders. We got to speak against the government. And then out their mouth, they be like, praise Jesus. I don't get it. You know what I'm saying? That's where the people like that are, like I said, they're double-minded. Double-minded people are very confused people. Because like I said, the farther you go all the way back to ancient Babylon, the farther you go all the way back to Greco-Roman culture, is satanic worship. Because they infiltrated Egypt, the ancient dynasty, with cannibalism, which is a form of a draconian energy. They infiltrated those dynastic periods in ancient Kemet because Egypt is actually a Greek word. So that's how you know that Egypt or ancient Kemet was basically infiltrated by Greco-Roman culture and introduced the Kemets to the Kemetic people to satanic worship, right? So that was basically the falling point of ancient Kemet. So look at all these crucifixes. You can't speak against human trafficking and the royal families and the monarchies and stuff like that, and you'd be like, well, they doing all this stuff, and you speak against them, and you still worship the same religions that these motherfuckers worship. Make it make sense. Now you got the occult significance of blood by Rudolph Steiner. Blood is very special. Blood is a very special fluid. So we finna get into this because this is all connected to Babylonian blood magic. Now, let's analyze this. Now, we all know what a Faustian bargain is, right? A Faustian bargain is where you make a deal with the devil. A deal with the devil is so-called selling your soul. So the false legend is connected to that energy because when you understand Babylonian blood magic, you basically given a sacrifice or a blood sacrifice or an oath to these entities to feed off of that energy. So now it tells you right here, the devil is a foe to the blood. And he points out that as the blood which sustains and preserves life, the devil, who is the enemy of the human race, must therefore be an enemy of the blood. That's what it says. Blood always plays the same part. Now, so yeah, you got to get this book by Rudolph Steiner, The Occult Significance of Blood. Rudolph Steiner, he was a Austrian occultist, a social reformer, an architect, an esoterist, and he was claimed to be clairvoyant. So he knew the esoteric aspects, and like I said, his teachings is influenced by Christian Gnosticism. Gnosticism talks about the archonic forces. So now, I don't know if I have a video to show you. I don't want to get too far in the presentation.
These are going to take.
Oh, yeah. So we're not there yet. So now we finna get into this guy right here. The guy who created the portrait for King Charles III. So you got Jonathan Geo, and he is a British artist of contemporary portraits. So he did portraits of Kevin Spacey, Dennis Hopper. Kevin Spacey, he's on that damn Epstein list. You know, you got Prince Philip, who's also on there, Tony Blair. Some of these people's on the damn Epstein list. So that's how you know he's connected to a form of ancient occultism. And this guy is the one who created the portrait of King Charles. So one thing you got to understand about Babylonian blood magic is based on transgressive art. It's basically the foul art. And transgressive art is where you use blood, urine, or feces in order to create a dynamical anomaly to where you able to open up portals within the infrastructure of the painting or the art that you're basically trying to propagate with your talent or whatever you're trying to propagate within, whether it's like a picture or a painting or a portrait, and you're using biological fluids of humans, you're basically opening up portals to where entities can basically come in. Right? So that's based on Babylonian blood magic. Right? So the Babylonian blood, hate when it does that. So the Babylonian blood magic, it talks about they also just don't use the blood of humans. They also use the blood of animals. So the blood of the animal is basically pleasing to the gods. The wizards believe that the dead, demons, and supernatural beings, apparitions, basically, generally have a special desire for blood, and the blood of the victims is poured in order to show credence in a form of a sacrifice. So that's why blood, you know, when you look at this portrait right here, which is a form of transgressive art. So you learned something today. This is what you call transgressive art. Transgressive art is when you use biological fluids, urine, feces, or whatever, and you put it within the infrastructure of the painting to basically open up portals for where entities can feed off that energy. That's why some paintings, if you look up ancient paintings or whatever, a lot of those paintings that's based on transgressive art, a lot of them are basically haunted. Look it up. Look it up. There's a lot of paintings that, you know, they're haunted and they fall off the walls because these paintings, they open up portals for entities. So now we're going to go back to this guy, Jonathan Geo, who does transgressive art. And I'm going to show you this video of him.
These are going to take. They tend to have a bit of a life of their own. When he became king halfway through, that in a way it made it more interesting. I was able to sort of see the shift in the body language, and sometimes you sort of talk about these things sort of metaphorically, but actually be able to visibly see someone, you know, gain stature and become more comfortable in themselves is a really interesting thing. You use these and a bit of the recollection of being with them, and what you want is to recreate the sense of being with someone, which is a moving person, obviously, and so that, you know, three-dimensional one, and try and show a few elements of their personality, you know, sometimes contradictory ones. He'll pretend to laugh at your jokes, and, you know, kind of he's funny and curious and interested, and so he's good at putting people at their ease. All of us have our, you know, biography etched into our faces. There's more of the weight of the world on his shoulders once he's become king. But he hadn't lost a sense of humor or his curiosity about lots of different things, always asking questions and interested in everything. I didn't sense there's anything wrong particularly, I think. And also, I think when you've got cancer, especially while you're going, it's often towards the end of the treatment that it actually takes on a physical toll. I mean, there's always people who disagree with you on how to paint these things. People that agree with how I've done it, but I think it's a bit different from the other world portraits I've seen.
You see the butterfly on the shoulder, representation of Project Monarch, which is based upon MK Ultra programs, mind manipulation.
Love was part of that, and just playing with this idea of mysticism and, you know, the way we, like, you know, we still buy into the idea of the royal family being a bit different from us in some way.
Right? Not a coincidence. I also did some research on that guy, This guy, he also helped host I'm gonna get back to him in a second. I forgot I skipped over this, but I can make this connect with something else. But this guy, he also did the guy who created the portrait for King Charles. He also did spirit cooking events with Marina Abramovic. Now, Marina Abramovic, she's also an occultist within the infrastructure of the industry, right? She did spirit cooking events with blood, Babylonian blood magic. And you can see she got the same type of cross, the crucifixes of the Knights of Templar and the Orders of the Red Dragon. Symbolism would be their downfall. And you can see her right here with Jay-Z. I was telling you in the video with the Jay-Z bottle with the double crucifix, the Order of the Red Dragon, which is a Knights of Templar cross, right? Because as I was telling you before, most of them symbols within the infrastructure of these Freemasonic rites and these secret societies, they have double, triple, or quadruple meanings, right? You just got to do the research. You can see her right here with Jay-Z, spirit cooking. Now, this is where we get into the movie aspect when you're talking about Dracula. So it's not a coincidence that when you look at this Bram Stoker's Dracula, it looks just like the damn portrait, right? It looks just like it. So you got to watch that movie by Bram Stoker called Dracula, one of the best Dracula movies, because it gives you the inception of where he came from and things of that nature. Not a coincidence. They both kind of look the same. Even when you look at the face, he kind of looks like King Charles. You know, and then he got the double phoenix. Then he got the black nobility coat of arms on the double-breasted vest, right? Then you got the Archon, the Draconian at the top right here, a gargoyle, whatever you want to call him. But he basically looks like King Charles. Like I said, you can't make this up. So watch this movie called Dracula, Bram Stoker's, and this guy, I forgot the Keanu Reeves in it. So you got to watch that movie. There's a lot of edification in it. So like I said, you got to watch these movies with a supreme spiritual eye. Don't watch it for entertainment purposes. So also, Dracula, he was able to shapeshift when he was at his, at the apex of his ability to shapeshift. He shapeshifted into a Draconian or Archon, right? Not a coincidence. Then you also cannot negate this. You got the movie Vampire in Brooklyn that basically gives you the reality of the inception point where Egypt was basically infiltrated, Kemet was infiltrated and turned into ancient Egypt by the Ptolemies and the Hyksos dynasty, where you had cannibalism. Cannibalism is a form of Babylonian ritualistic practices that came from the Canaanite, right? So you got Vampire in Brooklyn. Because one thing you gotta understand, the first vampires were actually your so-called black ones too. So that's how they was able to infiltrate. So within the movie Vampire in Brooklyn, with Eddie Murphy in it, the guy's name was Maximilian. Maximilian was really a Draconian. He was a Moor too. You can look his history up as well. I forgot to incorporate it within this presentation. So Maximilian was born in ancient Egypt, along with his kind, vampires known by many names, such as Nosferatu, the undead, and exiled by the country's human inhabitants. Remember, like I said, one thing you gotta understand about Draconians, right? When you get to the inception of it, when you go to the book of Enoch, it talks about the cherubim. The cherubim are the fallen angels. The fallen angels are the Nephilim. The word Nephilim comes from the word Nephala, which means fallen. So the cherubim, 1/3 of the galaxy was kicked out of the heavens, the 200 fallen angels. When they was kicked out, they were castigated to the planet Saturn, right? Saturn is equated to Satan. So planet Saturn It's also known as the land of Nod. The land of Nod means that you don't have a homeland. When you don't have a homeland, you get kicked out everywhere. So that's why the vampires, known by many names, were exiled by the country's humans. So they don't have a homeland. So that means that when you go to in the book of Enoch, it tells you that the cherubim made it with the daughters of men. The daughter of men are the Canaanite. So that means that the Canaanite, a part of the bloodline of the Draconians or the vampires, they don't have a homeland. They don't have a homeland nowhere on this planet. So that's why when you hear people saying their time is up, that means that their time is up. The 6,000 year purification period has reached this mandated cap, right? So they was kicked out of everywhere, right? They was kicked out of everywhere. So when you watch the movie, he shapeshifts and he looks just like a Draconian as well. So you got the curse from the Bermuda Triangle. The Bermuda Triangle is also where you got the Epstein Island is at, Star Island, off the coast of Florida. So that's where the great majority people hear about when you read some of Dr. York's books. It talks about you got Draconian bases within the infrastructure of the Bermuda Triangle that's powered by a metaphysical crystal. So you got to also watch this movie called The Legend of Dracula, or The Voyage of the Meter. So the last voyage of the Meter, when you do the etymology of the word Demeter, it means the daughter of Kronos. Kronos comes from chronology. Chronology is Father Time. Father Time is acclimated to Saturn, satanic worship. So when you look at this Draconian or Dracula, is one and the same. A Draconian, a Dracula. That's why when you look at some of these cathedrals and churches, they always have the gargoyle, right? They have the gargoyle because a gargoyle or archon, a Draconian, Dracula, vampire, they're the same entities, right? They're basically the same entities. That is the correlation. So this video is basically going to give a good, synopsis of how to basically bring everything together, because some people be like, well, I don't know where this comes from. Well, how does this go together? This is the video that does it for you. So hit that subscribe button if you're new to the channel and share this video, man. So this movie right here, Dracula Untold, is also talking about you have a monarchy system of a royal family, and then that same royal family, it goes all the way back to into the inception of the daughters of men, the Canaanite, before they got their power. Because when you go to El's Holy Angel, Revelation 17:17, it tells you that the evil reptilian gave power to the beast. The guy that you see standing right here, he goes into a cave and he gets his power from a Draconian. So the Draconian gave power to the beast. The beast is the Canaanite. The Canaanite is a Jebusite. The Jebusite is your so-called demographic of people who control the movie industry, music industry, and politics. So that's why when you go to the end of the movie, it shows you this same guy, but he's controlling the world behind the scenes, and a lot of people don't know it. You got to watch this movie. Also, in this movie here, in the voyage of the last voyage of the Meter, he's able to reach his human form, and when he reaches his human form, and when they get in London, he is also known as a black hat. Because during this time period, a lot of vampires, they used to wear the tall, long black hats, like how Abraham Lincoln used to wear. So there's a picture of David Rockefeller. He has the same type of hat that he's wearing too in the movie. So watch this movie. Watch these movies that I'm showing you. Watch all these movies. It's going to show you what the hell is going on. You're going to be like, oh. Everything is going to connect for you. Everything. Now, since we're at the apex of the presentation, now I got to show you, this has nothing to do with the video, but we got to talk about this. You know what I'm saying? As I was telling you before, the April 8th solar eclipse, the so-called solar eclipse, that's when you have the resurgence of the black sun. During the same time you had CERN activated. So CERN was activated. That's when you had these parasitical interdimensional entities infiltrate the planet. These parasitical entities is also known as Zeta Reticula Greys, gray aliens. Gray aliens, they don't have the ability to procreate because they don't have reproductive organs. So they can only live through the physiology of NPCs. An NPC is a non-player character. A non-player character is a person who doesn't have a soul. They're basically on walking around the planet with no consciousness, and they're basically on autopilot. So when you're on autopilot, you can be infiltrated by an entity or a gray that doesn't have the ability to procreate because they're trying to turn planet Earth into the sixth hybrid race. They're trying to turn planet Earth into the sixth hybrid race because their species is dying off, so they got to live through the physiology of NPCs. So this is where demonic possession starts to take place, because when you have holes inside your aura, right, these entities can attach themselves to your nervous system. Your nervous system is what basically controls your energetic morphic field. So you're going to see a lot of people facing a lot of spiritual implications during this time period because they had a low vibrational state. So the solar eclipse on April 8th, it was based upon the physiology of your scroll of all, which is your chakra system. Your chakra system had to be at a certain balancement, right? So if you had hypothetically speaking, if a person's root chakra was so out of balance, an entity can infiltrate that person and control them from that lower chakra point, right? So if your heart chakra was out of balance, that person can infiltrate you, or not the person, but that entity can infiltrate you and use you for many different toxic purposes. Like if you have holes inside your aura, like it's basically going to amplify whatever trauma that you basically haven't faced yet. If you haven't faced your trauma and you did your shadow work, you haven't done none of that, that's where these entities can basically control you by way of your chakra system. That is your scroll of all. Your scroll of all is acclimated to your consciousness. So not just NPCs can be infiltrated, people who have a soul, you could be infiltrated too. But it's based upon the state of consciousness you're at. If you're at a low vibrational state and you subjected to your root chakra, you're going to be infiltrated, just like this lady in the video I'm going to show you. So this was a police pursuit ends in West LA. Remember, I was telling you that 2024 is the fall of the Red Dragon. Then you also have the date of June 6, 2024, which is equated to 666. And then Ryan Garcia, he said that something's going to be taking place in LA on June 6, 2024. So it's not a coincidence that this took place in LA, the same place where Ryan Garcia said to get out of on June 6.
She's bleeding, and it's worth noting she almost never stopped talking. Unclear exactly what she was saying, if she was coherent or not, but you can see her. She just,
like I said, the eyes never lie. You could tell she's under demonic possession.
Stopped talking, even though it's clear that she was injured. Mm-hmm.
He also had, did have a number of officers who did sustain some injury. Is that accurate?
Yes, we do. One LAPD cruiser right at the beginning of the pursuit. She caught.
So I had to show you that because, it's all in correlation to everything. Not with this video, but it's in correlation to, with all the other things that I've been talking about. So for those who coming in, I was basically given the esoteric aspect and the breakdown of King Charles's portrait and how it was connected to a form of transgressive art. Transgressive art is basically the foul art that's based on Babylonian blood magic, right? It's based on Babylonian blood magic. So you can see the synchronization of the numerical sequence of 666 because the picture sits at 8 foot, 6 inches by 6 foot by 6 inches. And it's also showing credence and veneration to Baphomet. Baphomet was acclimated to the Knights of Templars. The Knights of Templars show credence to Baphomet because Baphomet comes from the Pazuzu tribe that's basically a Draconian. So a Draconian entity or archonic force are basically synonymous with the sigil-sism of Baphomet when you go all the way back to the esoteric history of where it came from, because it all works in conjunction with Vladimir the Impaler, who was also an ancestor of King Charles. Well, you have the Order of the Red Dragon, So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for watching this video. Thanks for watching this video. Because like I said, we living in a time right now, you know, things are starting to ramp up. Things are speeding up. You know, celebrities are getting exposed. Everything is moving so fast right now, right? And the only reason that everything is moving so fast right now is because time is not essentially moving faster. Time is actually starting to dematerialize because time is sped up by way of consciousness. Your consciousness is acclimated to the ethereal state, the ethereal plane, which is the dodecahedron, the magnetic field all over the planet, right? So the magnetic field of the planet is being activated by way of gamma radiation. That gamma radiation activates the olfactory nerve in the brain, which is the spirit of Melchizedek, right? Who is Tahuti, who is Thoth, or Quetzalcoatl, right? That is your Christ consciousness. So everything is speeding up in the simulation because your consciousness, what you think at a supreme level, you know, of your mental state, that's when you're able to manipulate timelines to where time basically starts to collapse. You collapse time by way of your mental frequency, by way of the gamma radiation, that cosmic radiation that's hitting the planet that was activated by the new sun. So that black sun during the April 8th solar eclipse, that black sun gave off a new vibration and radiation to the sun that we got. So you got a new sun, you got new frequencies that's in the planet. New frequencies. This is why Japan is trying to, you know, galvanize and basically trying to get a great majority of black men to go over to Japan to basically increase their birth rate. The reason they want to do that is because everything is based upon the race of the sun. Everybody is certain demographics of people are basically racing against the sun, because if your physiology is not connected to the sun, it can basically dematerialize your mental state. It can dematerialize your biological functions to where you're not able to procreate, right? So like I said, this is the fall of the red dragon. The red dragon is the draconian. The draconian gave power to the beast. The beast is the one, or the bloodlines, who cannot procreate, right? Their time is up by way of the precessional movement of the sun, right? The sun is having a form of acute radiation. That acute radiation works in tandem with your physiology because you have carbon. Once you have carbon, you activate the neuroendocrine transducer, right? Because what you gotta understand is that the carbon body is an electromagnetic generator and a light code transducer. So when you get those light codes, right, that vitamin D, which is vitamin, vitality, Amun Ra, Ra is the sun, those frequencies is basically upgrading your physiology. So if you're natural to the planet, the sun is going to upgrade you. If you're unnatural to the planet, it's going to break you down mentally, spiritually, and physically, to where these entities can take over your physical vessel, just like the lady in the video. She was under demonic possession, right? So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, hit that subscribe button if you're new. Get this video out there. End of transmission.
10:14. We will put an end to this madness.
It's me again, God. I know it's been a long time since I last called you back on your line. So I hope and I pray for your hand to help me on the ladder to the land. Karma's gonna get to you, and then you'll have a chariot with only one less friend. Now I had distant folks that are looking to my eyes to understand the wisdom he's given and his wealth from the skies. So thanks for this meal that I'm about to receive, and thank you for my health and all the good memories. Thanks for the courage taking on another day, when I used to not believe, but now I know about grace. Stay away from the fire, cause the flames does burn. Go with your gut feeling, when it's wrong you learn. For every one step I take, the Lord takes two. And do unto others if you want it done unto you. It's me again, God, I know it's been a long time since I last called you back on your line. So I hope and I pray for your hand to help me on the ladder to the land. It's me again, God, I know it's been a long time since I last called you back on your line. So I hope and I pray for your hand to help me on the ladder to the land. This a completion. The selfish proto-Grecian, Amerindian, Phoenician. I'm the last of the Mohicans, the bastard of the land, the pen, melanin, accretion. And we just trying to get back to the fact that we was kings and queens of a land before the avalanche seized it. I live on Turtle Island with the rest of the diseased. Better than the medicine for 7 different treatments. Niggas try to ride away but end up getting seasick. The sleep can feel my words like Braille and they're awakened with the penmanship of Hindu script written in them vacant monastery honorary payments to the prototype. Tomorrow's only a day away but nothing happens overnight. The fuck's wrong with going left when you know it's right? Biting off more than I can chew, that's an overbite. Black on black crime is like watching 2 soldiers fight when all along they was on the same page. History, it's me again, God, I know it's been a long time since I last called you back on your line. So I hope and I pray for your hand to help me on the ladder to the land. It's me again, God, I know it's been a long time since I last called you back on your line. So I hope and I pray for your hand to help me on the ladder to the land.